The following video contains personal stories of Indigenous people who have experienced homelessness. Drug use, violence, foster care, residential school, and recounting traumatic experiences are discussed. Residential school survivors, their families, and Indigenous people dealing with intergenerational trauma can access mental health and crisis supports through the Indian Residential School Survivors Society at 1-800-721-0066. Others affected by this content can call 310 Mental Health at 310-6789.
I'm Daniel Sands, and I'm Two-Spirit. I'm gay. I'm Cree, French, English. I'm an intergenerational residential school survivor. I'm a cancer survivor. I'm living with HIV. I have experiences with homelessness, substance use, abuse, being bullied, experiences with mental wellness challenges like depression and anxiety. I'm neurodiverse. I have ADHD. I use a manual wheelchair, and her name is Diva because she doesn't do stairs and she likes big bathrooms that she can turn around in, and she helps me self-advocate for accessibility by reminding me that I can take space and I can make space. And she's like my backup for self-advocating for accessibility. So my dream is to help make the world more accessible, more inclusive, more caring, more loving, more healed. At the time when I was sleeping outside, I thought it was just this one event in my life where I was reaching a tipping point with my addiction, my active addiction, and my life was unmanageable, and I couldn't hold a job down, and relationships were really difficult, and I went back home, and I was struggling so much that it affected my relationships with my family to the point where I had to leave. I didn't know how hurt I was and how much healing I needed at that point. I thought it came down to this one event. Since my family, I couldn't be around my family, I couldn't be around anybody, that there was something wrong with me, that I'm failing. Looking back on it now, I had been homeless way longer than actually sleeping outside. Even when I was in my 20s and I was working full time, I had housing insecurity the entire time. I had housing insecurity even as a kid, and security issues as a kid. And I didn't really understand that until very recently with, working with my counselor of childhood traumas and triggers and stuff like that. So you don't have to sleep outside to be homeless, which I learned. Sleeping outside to me was like a real oh, now I'm homeless when I had been in, various states of homelessness in the past and growing up, and yeah. In September 2015 was when I was sleeping outside and was diagnosed with HIV and cancer. But yeah, homeless going into the hospital, was at the hospital, and then for roughly 3 months in total, and then they're like, "Hey, you're discharged," and I was still homeless. And that's also a huge flaw in the system. But the care and the support can't end there, right? So when they said you're going to discharge soon, I said nope. I said absolutely not. I stuck my heels in and said I'm going to need housing, and we're going to figure this out. And so I dug my heels in and I said nope. Find a way, I am not leaving here and going sleeping outside again. Find a way. And so I was eventually connected with Pacifica Housing, and I've been with them ever since. And this is the first time I felt securely housed in my life. Like I put art, I have plants. If I were to, had housing insecurity, I never would have gotten these plants because I would have been scared, how do I move them? Where am I gonna go next place? So being securely housed, it changed everything. It increased my self-worth, my self-value. I was like, I deserve to have a nice place. I deserve to have a safe place. I deserve to have somewhere where I can feel at home and decorate the way I want and have things that I want, have people over. I have a fish tank. There's no way I could have had a fish tank when I had housing insecurity. How am I gonna move a fish tank? But I'm able to now because I live in subsidized housing.
Ending Indigenous homelessness will mean sharing good medicine that treats the intergenerational trauma in the individual and restores balance in the community. Supporting Indigenous outreach workers and programs to share the stories that shape each nation will help Indigenous people reconnect with who they are and the values that give them purpose. We're all part of the web of interconnections, and this means that change is the responsibility of every one of us. Learn more and get involved today.